SpatialXL recognizes a number of different spatial layer types. In this example, we'll work with shapefile data, which is one of the more commonly used spatial layer types. To open a shapefile in SpatialXL, click on the Open Folder icon here in the Quick Access toolbar, and browse to the location where your shapefile is saved on your machine. Shapefiles are usually made up of a couple of layer files, and to make sure that you open the correct .shp extension, you can filter out shapefiles here. And here you can load your shapefile, which will open in SpatialXL. In our example, we are opening a shapefile of population census boundaries for our area. To make any changes to our shapefile layer, we can right-click on the layer in the layer control and select Properties. And here we can change any settings for our shapefile. For example, on styling, we can change the color by selecting the color drop-down here. And we can also change the border thickness and color as well for our shapefile. We can also give the shapefile text labels depending on the data we have in the shapefile. And we can also create various themes on the different columns and information that we have in the attribute table. On the General tab, we can also set a transparency for our shapefile by dragging the bar back and forth here. So we'll put a slight transparency on in this example, and then we'll click OK. The order that the layers display in the layer control is important for how they display on the map. You'll see at the moment our shapefile layer is sitting at the top of our layer control and is drawing above our point layer. We can take our customer layer and move this layer above the shapefile layer to draw on top. To do that, we simply drag and drop the layer in the layer control so that it sits above our shapefile layer. Shapefiles contain attribute data, which is tabular data on the spatial information you have in the shapefile. To access this data, we can right-click our layer in the layer control and select View Data. This will bring up the layer data grid, which contains all of the attribute data about your shapefile. In our example, we have our population census boundaries loaded in our shapefile, and in the layer data grid, we can view all the population and demographic data that pertains to the shapefile. We can get a count at the bottom of our layer grid by right-clicking and selecting Count, and this will tell us how many features we have in our shapefile. We can filter, search, and pivot data within our layer data grid. As an example, we'll do a filter on our column here to filter out only the subplaces in the area of Soweto. So to do that, we'll click on our filter icon here, and we can either tick on the values we want to filter here, or we can search for them. And you'll see whenever you filter data in your layer grid, the count of the number of features will display here. And you'll see on your map as well that the map will update to display only those values that you have filtered in your layer grid. To clear a filter in the layer grid, you click on the cross in the bottom left corner of your grid here, and that will remove the filters from your grid and from your map. We can also search for a value in any column in our layer grid. For example, if we were looking for a particular subplace here, we could type the name. And again, as we type, you'll see the map will update. And there you go, the value that we're looking for, in this case the subplace of Randfontein NU, has filtered and displayed on the map. We can also pivot or group our data in our layer file. As an example, we'll take our local municipality column here, and we'll drop and drag this into the column header box here. And here you'll see each of the local municipality names, and in this case we can do, for example, a count of the number of subplaces that fall within each municipality. You can also use this to do a sum, a percentage, or min-max average value on any numeric data that you have in your shapefile. To remove this grouping or pivot, you can simply drag the column back into your column headings. We can also make use of some of the tools in the quick access toolbar. For example, the inspector tool we can use to click on any feature in our shapefile to identify further information. So we'll click on one here as an example, and this will pull up all the information for this particular feature that is stored in the layer data grid. And all that information can be viewed here. We can also make use of the map selection tools to select a couple of features in our shapefile and highlight the selection back in our layer data grid. So we'll zoom in, for example, to an area here, and then we can make use of the select by clicking tool to select and highlight a couple of subplaces in this area. You'll see there we've selected 8 subplaces, and if we want to view these subplaces in our layer grid, we can click on the Select Highlighted Elements in Layer button here. And this will bring up our layer data grid that we viewed earlier, and it will bring up only the 8 selected subplaces that we have highlighted on our map. And again, we can view all this data here. We could then copy the selected data out to Excel by right-clicking and selecting Copy Selected Data, clicking OK, and we could then paste this to an Excel spreadsheet. To clear the selection, we can again click the cross here at the bottom left of our layer grid, and we can clear the selection by clicking on the Clear Selected icon here. If you are working with an existing shapefile in SpatialXL that has a number of themes and layer stylings already set up and saved as a layer file, you can open these in SpatialXL to view. We'll remove our current shapefile layer that we have displayed here. And again, we'll go to the Open folder icon. And this time, instead of opening the shapefile layer, we'll open the .layer file. Select that and click Open. So this will again load the census subplaces, but now it will load the layers with a number of themes that have already been set up for our data. So if we had to right-click our layer now and select Theme, you'll see there are a number of existing themes that have already been set up. For example, if we select Dominant Language Group, we'll see here that a theme has already been created on the predominant language group for our subplaces. And as another example, we'll look at Dominant LSM, which shows our subplaces colored by LSM group. We also have labels set up for our subplaces, so as we zoom in, you'll see the name of the subplaces appear here. To create themes for your SpatialXL layer, you simply right-click on the layer and go to the Properties box, select the Thematics tab, and here you can create new themes based on the data that you have in your attribute table. If this is a layer file with pre-existing themes, you can add your own themes to the list here. Or if it is the first time you're loading a shapefile, you can create your themes from scratch. For more information on how to create themes, please watch our video on how to create and work with themes in SpatialXL. To save changes to your themes, you can save your shapefile as a layer file. To do this, you right-click the layer in your layer control, select Save and Save Layer Properties to, and you'll browse to your location where your shapefile is saved, and you'll save the .layer file here. This will save all the properties, settings, and stylings that you've set up in your map themes. We can also move any data from our shapefile layer that is in our layer data grid to an Excel spreadsheet. To do this, we can right-click the layer and select Move to Worksheet. And here we can choose the data columns that we want to move across. In this case, we'll check on all the columns, but tick off the geometry column as we do not need the geometry data in this case. We can also choose to have a link in our spreadsheet back to our map layer. And this will mean that anytime we filter or update our data in our spreadsheet, it will update on the map. And to do that, we'll simply choose a unique key or unique ID in our data to link to, and we'll tick link data on here. The name of the sheet will display here, and this you can change as well as required. We'll then click OK. And now if we move across to our Excel spreadsheet, you'll see that we now have a sheet with all of the data from our layer data grid. Our attribute data is now displaying here in our Excel spreadsheet.